I wouldn't even buy a screwdriver.
I'm disappointed that Brother Steele's memorial service is on Saturday because that's when I have to work. Everything's on Saturday. They just assume everybody works normal white man hours, and I don't. I have people to see and clients on Saturday. I hate to miss that. I didn't even know he passed away. That guy was a friend of so many people.
Yes, he was.
See, there's a lot of graduates who are making a return trip. I don't feel so bad. How do you do, sir?
Oh, pretty good. How about you, Mark?
Oh, very well, thank you.
Good.
I'm running into a lot of people lately.
Ah.
Not in the car or anything like that. Just
Yeah, I hope you don't hurt them.
I don't know what's wrong. Well, I think it's like I usually do. I think it's the other person's fault. A lot of people don't make eye contact anymore. You know, in time because they're so used to doing this. Put that down. They're so used to doing this that they don't. I mean, so you're walking along with them, and they're like, and you end up instead. You know, in the old days, they kind of, they kind of let you know which way they're going to do.
Yep.
They're going to go. Anymore.
I've got mine too.
I'm having trouble with patience and compassion for other people. Everybody else seems like a zombie cipher moron. I just want to stay away from them. That's not, I mean, can you imagine if our Lord took that attitude? I'm not going to save these people.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm struggling with. In case you ask me how I was doing, I'm going to give you an answer. I'm not honest. I'm also looking for a 10 to 20-year-old small 4-cylinder 5-speed pickup truck. You just can't find those things anymore. I mean, I'm not one of these, I need a big 4x4 because I'm a... No. I just want a tiny, like an S10 Ford Ranger, Toyota. But you can't find anything like that for under like $5,000. Unless it's all tore up. I mean, those things are...
Because everybody else wants them.
What's that?
Everybody else wants them too.
I guess so. I'm in the wrong. But anyway, you know that guy took me out for breakfast more than once, just so he can we can talk hermeneutics. We disagreed, of course, but I mean, just think. We went to in Denver, Sheridan and 44th, the Sunrise, and we got the world famous huevos rancheros and the smothered burrito. It was, but he paid for us. But Brother Steele, please let me. No, I'm gonna because he wanted to discuss theology and hermeneutics, and that's the kind of. I mean, every time I saw him, I mean, we can't lose people like that. Most people in this church hate me, I think, but he was one of them. He was one of them, and he would always look me in the eye and smile.
Survey. There's 3 people who actually like you, so don't feel too bad. Jim was one of them. So you're now the 2, me and one other guy.
Right. All kidding aside, really.
I'm pretty sure it was me.
Yes, we got 2, 3.
I really am going to miss him. That was a terrific man.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was 77. I thought he was about 65 or.
Yeah, I know.
What about Colin Powers, man? That happened to him too because of COVID.
Colin Powell. Yeah.
Yeah.
The former Secretary of State, I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think we will start. Let's maybe take a testimony or two about Jim Steele if you had any relationship with him. So Jim grew up in the Midwest and he met his wife at Bible college. I'm not sure where he went to school as undergrad. I'm not even sure. They met. He was told by his classmates and roommate, "You should marry that girl." And she was intimidated by him. He was one of the academic elites, and she didn't think there was a chance there. But they met and dated and were shortly married afterwards. They finished school and at the age of 21 took his first pastorate. So that's
young pastor, wow.
That's an awfully young pastor. And he pastored certain churches over the years, and then he was a president of a small Bible college in South Dakota. In what's the name of Larry, help me out. What's that town? Hot Springs, Nevada.
Yeah, Hot Springs.
Hot Springs. Larry, would you fill in his biography a little bit? Help me out a little. So
Well,
conference speaker, recent years.
which I can fill you in. Yeah, they're from Michigan. I grew up around there and went to Grand Rapids, is where he attended school. Where they
Okay. Okay.
Grand Rapids Bible College and School of Bible and Music. They're in Grand Rapids. But he pastored several places. Was a youth director, was an associate pastor, was a pastor. He was a Bible college teacher, Bible college president, which you mentioned, and then author, several things, and did a lot of Bible intensive training. And there's still a website up with about 100 messages, videos from his Bible intensive online. It's called standingtrue.com. It's a really nice website. So look that up, standingtrue.com.
Standingtrue.com. How many times did he say he would like to straighten Mark Slater out? I mean, it wasn't every time we met. Would you say 20, 30, 40 times that let's pray for Mark, that his eyes would be open to truth?
Yeah, I'm
How
sure
often
that.
did he do that, Larry? Larry doesn't want to be complicit.
This is being recorded.
Wants to plead the fifth.
Thank you, Skip. So just a fantastic man.
Yes.
I'd say just on a personal note, we would be able to talk theology. He kept current of all the major issues. So if there's a hot theological thing going on out there, he was not ignorant of it. And then he would have his iPad with him. And so if I'm preaching, he's looking at the languages to see if I'm accurate with my exegesis. And when you retire, quote, from ministry, a lot of retired pastors are very critical of the active pastors. He was never that way, never critical, always supportive, very, very encouraging type of man. So I have fond memories. Probably his closest friend is Dick Bose. I don't know if Dick's online. I didn't look here. Yeah, so probably his closest friend here was Dick Bose. So when Mary Bose died a couple years ago, Jim and Ann really took Dick under their wings just to be there, to visit, to comfort, just to be a friend. And then when Jim died last week, Dick was right there by his side, and so neat to see friends, the way they love each other all the way to the end. So, any other Jim Steele? We're talking about Jim Steele for a moment. Just any other stories about Jim? Great teacher. We can call him in a heartbeat. Jim, could you teach tomorrow? I'm sick. In a heartbeat. No problem there.
He had a Sunday school lesson. It was a couple of years ago. I was in the lobby, kind of in between chores, and I thought, well, I'll just step into Jim's class. He was teaching on paganism in our culture, and how previously paganism was a lower class, so to say. It was always shunned, and in our culture, it's elevated. You're not enlightened, you're not spiritual if you're not pagan. So just the total inversion in our culture. He had a lot of examples, especially in our Boulder Triangle area. Just amazing insight and discernment.
Really good. Any other memories of Jim? So his funeral will be here Saturday. Normally, I have a speaking engagement in Arizona Friday and Saturday, actually probably Saturday, Sunday. And over all the years, usually if someone dies as a member, I will cancel the outside engagement to do the shepherding here. And I'm very willing to do that, but I know, thinking on it, I know exactly what Jim Steele would have told me. If Jim was here, Jim, should I preach your funeral? Actually, he said he wanted Larry to preach it, so that hurts my feelings. But that was before I had a commitment. But Jim, between going to your funeral, or should I preach a men's retreat with about 115, 120 guys and preach to maybe 1,000 people over the weekend at church in Arizona? What would you like me to do? He'd say, he'd laugh, and he would say, you can go down and do it. Don't go stay and preach my funeral. I know what he would say. So do pray for me. I'll be leaving Friday morning for Arizona. And there's another Tri-City Baptist Church in Chandler. We're not a denomination. We have no, I don't know why they call theirs Tri-City, and I'm not sure why we call ours Tri-City. But
Why do we call ours Tri-City?
initially, the cities didn't blur together as much as they do today. And so Homeshire was the one who made the suggestion to Matt Olson, why don't we call it Tri-City? And we got Westminster and Broomfield to the north and Arvada to the south. And this was a horse pasture here. This was a dirt road. I mean, this was, so who lived here back in the 80s? I mean, so you did. I mean,
You didn't even have one city.
yeah. So now they all blend and merge together, and it's hard to see any city. But Homeshire was a very significant player in our church's history. If you didn't know, when he started Neighborhood Bible Time, they led over 1 million kids to the Lord. Over 1 million kids have been saved in that ministry. So no slouch ministry, still going on all over the world. Yeah. My son's in a new church, and the pastor there was one of Homeshire's boys. So South Carolina, one of his boys pastoring here. Our kids were so impressed with Homeshire. We just moved here. We went up to Boulder to see his church, his office, which was a church. And they had an indoor basketball court, a number of shower stalls where the guys would train, and they would have like a dormitory feel. And a ball rolled out to Homeshire to about half court. And when we moved here, I thought he was 150 years of age, but he probably was probably my age. And he just picked the ball up and with a hook shot, flipped it up from half court, nothing but net.
Oh,
Sorry. Our kids were like, whoa, this guy's incredible, you know. And he had all kinds, he was so eccentric. And he just unbelievable training for the kids. And he had a blue bus that he'd pick kids up with. And he'd say, now boys, we're going to pray. And he would drive with his eyes closed and pray. So it was a very uncomfortable ride. And his board eventually said, tell Homeshire he's not supposed to drive that bus. And he drove it almost to his dying day. And we had to get all kinds of policy issues because he was backing in the cars and things. Uninsured, uninspected. But he had a heart for kids. Boy, he had a heart for kids. So really appreciate Homeshire. Appreciate Jim Steele. Paul, tell us about your sister. We didn't get a chance to hear much about her. She just went home to be with the Lord. You had the funeral last Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your sister. What was she like?
Oh, she was a blessing. She was instrumental when we were in high school. Our family wasn't going anywhere. And one of our classmates talked her into going to Hoffman Heights Baptist Church. Ed Nelson was pastor there. And she got in with a youth group there, enjoyed that, and eventually got saved. Didn't take her too long to get saved there. Well, I noticed some difference. She wasn't really a rotten sinner, but I did notice some difference. And I got curious, and she got me curious. So I went out there, and after a while going and hearing the gospel preached and so forth, I got saved. And then years later, our folks were not saved at the time, but they started going down there. And I was at San Francisco, Treasure Island, San Francisco, in the Navy, and Dad wrote me a letter saying that he and my mother got saved and joined the church that day. So all because of my sister.
Wow. Wow.
So
huge.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Where was Hoffman Heights? I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
Where was that?
East Aurora, east of the original Aurora, out by Peoria.
Does anyone know this church or the history of been there?
I'm not there.
You've been, Mark? You know where that
There's
is?
Hoffman Heights Baptist Church, Central Baptist Church, there was a lot of Baptist churches in that area.
Yeah.
About 6th Avenue, between 6th and Colfax on, like you said, Peoria. Yeah, we're Aurora.
Louisiana guy. How do you know all this?
I grew up in Aurora. I'm not, my ancestry's from Louisiana. I grew up in Aurora. I thought we went over this.
How many times
I got it?
Civil War, Mark.
You guys need a moment?
Yes.
That church is not a Baptist church anymore. That's not there.
So anyone else familiar with Mark's saying and what Paul? Brother Wright, did you know these places?
No, not over there.
So you were more north than your,
Brighton.
so more Brighton.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone else over there that familiar with that? So Nelson went from there to South Sheridan. Was that, or did he start South Sheridan?
Yes, basically. He went to several years of evangelism and church planting in between, and then went to South Sheridan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing. A couple prayer requests. One, our missionaries, the Bunions up in Montana, their chief, the Blackfoot chief, just died. He was 97 and had been serving as that chief since the 50s. So this is a huge loss. Well, they call it a wake. So you may be familiar with wake or whatever, visitation, like for a funeral, but whatever. Tonight they're having a huge gathering up there on the reservation, and they've asked Pastor Bunyan to speak at it. So we want to pray for that. It starts here in just a few minutes. So that's a critical prayer request. Then we have a IBC student, International Baptist College student, graduate. She's 30, married, has a child, and she has died of COVID.
Oh,
So that's a big one. So the Mott family. So pray for the Mott family. And then our own missionary, Lexi Binoka, has had some very serious health issues. Probably will keep them off the field for a while from Kenya.
He's 30.
But her sister just committed suicide last week.
Oh, no.
And on the same day, her aunt died. So her mother, Melanie, just lost her daughter and her sister on the same day. So we want to pray for Melanie. Pray for Lexi Binoka. While all this is happening, George is in Kenya, kind of pulling some loose ends together before he came back. So she's in a really bad spot for her own health and the loss of a sister. The sister has 3 kids. So under more healthier circumstances, George and Lexi would probably bring those kids into their home. So right now, there's a lot of things up in the air. So pray for George Binoka and his ministry and family. We appreciate it. Okay, other prayer requests, and we'll pray and get into our topic. Yep, Troy.
Just prayer for John Fitzsimmons. He's in our Baptist kind of circle of friends.
Yep.
Close with Jerry and Amy Worley,
Yep.
A friend of Beth Eden. And he's in the hospital right now in ICU, kind of on a downward trend with a COVID and pneumonia situation. We heard he's on the ventilator as of this morning at 3 a.m. So prayer chains going around in that circle, and just wanted to add Tri-City to that prayer chain if we could for John Fitzsimmons.
Let's pray for John Fitzsimmons then. Another COVID issue. Okay, any other prayer requests?
Where the Worleys went.
Hey, Lawrence, you're not muted, which is fine, but it sounds like you're eating dinner.
We are.
We might have some guys here who are hungry.
It smells good.
I'd show you the picture, but then you wouldn't be able to concentrate at all.
Yeah, you might want to mute, but that's your. Okay. Any other prayer requests? Why don't I pray for us, man? Heavenly Father, thank you for this evening. We come together as men and to enjoy Christian friendship and fellowship here, to talk and to laugh and to bear one another's burdens. And just thank you for this time. We think of Jim Steele, he's with you.
Yes, Lord.
And we're encouraged by that knowledge that he loved you and you brought him home so peacefully last Thursday. And then we do pray for Ann, who's coming off of COVID and just physically, emotionally wore out. We just pray to protect her, give her grace. We pray for her 3 children, and we pray for her son-in-law, Mark, who's been battling cancer and other issues, COVID in recent months, and that you just give grace to that family. We pray for the funeral on Sunday, that it would, Saturday, that be a blessing and an encouragement to them. Lord, we pray for the Mott family who I just referenced, where this young girl is now with you as well. And we just pray for her husband and her one son, for Adam. Lord, you give grace to them. And for Lexi and George Binoka, thank you for their zeal, their desire to do ministry. We thank you for the remarkable work they did in Kenya. Just in a few months, they started a church, enough converts to start a church. And so, Lord, bring the right leadership in to keep that ministry going forward there. We pray for Lexi's mom, that you comfort her in these enormous losses. And just give grace to that family as well. And then the Fitzsimmons, Lord, we know that you're able to do anything you so choose, and that nothing's too hard for you. And so we commit the situation. This man who's not doing well, we pray for your mercy and your grace. Lord, we thank you for all the kids here tonight, and the youth, and the Hispanic work, and the ladies' study, and just our time here together, that you would bless it. And we just want to thank you for this time. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Women, great to have you. If you don't know Jeff Wright's father, great to have you here. Always a treat to see you. Can you share a little bit about your background, kind of line of work you have been in? I bought a vehicle from A&W a number of years ago, but can you share your background a little bit?
Yeah, I grew up over toward Brighton. It was Elmwood Baptist Church. Went to school over there when they first started that.
At the Christian school?
At the Christian school. Okay. We come from Nebraska. And then the last 2 years, my dad, he moved over here because he was in the oil field. He followed the drilling rigs around. So he came over here and went 1 year to public school. And then that's when Elmwood started the school, ACE model. And went there a couple of years, or finished out high school. Been in the oil field most all my life. Just recently retired a little bit. Go up to Faith Point up at Longmont. Doing pretty good up there. Bring the kids, a couple of grandkids down here to Kiwanis.
So,
Kind of keep them interjected somehow.
So what'd you tell the guy, what's the oil industry looking like in Colorado right now?
A lot of rules and regulations, all this green gas, emissions. So it's just a balance. How do you make it all work?
So great to have you and your kiddos here. Jeff's father. And then, Bart, how was your trip at Minnesota for the weekend? You did a really quick trip. How was the funeral? How was your time? Was it good? So whirlwind. Yep. Good impact. All right, just a couple things. We're going to dive into Romans 6 in a moment, but I thought it'd be good just for accountability's sake. It's so important for us to be in the Word every day, just self-feeding in the Scriptures. And as a parent, a father of 3 boys, one of our prayer requests is for our kids. We want them to be good kids, sure we do, but we want them to be godly kids.
Amen.
We want them to love the Lord, and we want them to be in the Word. And they battle with the temptation to kind of coast just like everyone does. So my one son, I've been praying specifically that he would not just be superficial with his Bible study. He would really dig in, because our kids, they know the stories, and you can just say, well, I know the Bible. Well, maybe know it a little bit, but there's a little bit more to learn probably. And so I'm praying for him, and something happened that was really neat. So he's at a crossroads of decisions. So he goes up to the top of a mountain to pray. And he's up praying, just alone with God. He's praying about some decisions, what the Lord would have him to do. And as he was there, he said, Lord, this is a beautiful, beautiful setting. And we're talking out in the middle of nowhere. And he said, Lord, I should probably make this a place to come up and read and study my Bible. And I wish I had my Bible here to study. So he prays and he makes this comment about the Bible, and he looks a little bit away from him, and there was this campfire. And he noticed something there on the edge of the stones on the fire ring. And there it was a Bible. No, nowhere. So he's saying, Lord, what is this message? This would just be a great place, and I need to be in the Word more, and there's the Word, I'm not sure if the Gideon's Bible saying that would be the story. Let's say it was a
Probably
Gideon.
was.
Probably was.
I just imagine some camper comes out of the woods saying, "What are you doing with my Bible?"
I mean, we're talking primitive, hard to get to place, but to be in the Word. So, my wife and I, we're empty nesters, so we're able in the morning to have devotions together. Usually we start pretty early, and that time is really valuable. We try to read a chapter a day. Right now we're working through the book of Ruth, and just really, really blessed to just be in the scriptures. So I'm just curious, before I get into the verse by verse study, what are you studying? Maybe you share something. I'm in Ruth today. I'm always convicted of that story because there's a famine in the land. He lives in Bethlehem of Judah. He lives in Bethlehem, house of bread. It appears no one else leaves the area. Everyone's under the same circumstances, but when she, Naomi finally comes back, it doesn't look like there was a great exodus. It looked like people just stayed with the stuff and worked through it and trusted God and remained in the promised land. But her husband, Naomi's husband, thought it best to leave, and he goes to Moab. This is where the enemy of God has had a real long history of animosity towards the people of God, but he goes there to survive. And ironically, in his efforts to try to survive, he dies. And the irony of trying to preserve his family, and his two sons die. And of course, what you would expect when you move into a pagan area is you run the risk of losing your family to paganism. And his two kids married two Moabite women, And Deuteronomy made it very clear you weren't to, be unequally yoked with the Ammonites and the Moabites and the parasites, all these people, and yet they did. And the story with Naomi, hearing that the famine had left, and things going well back home, and she tells her two daughter-in-laws, "You all stay back. There's no hope. If you come with me, this is a bad situation. You go back to your family and your gods." Not real good counsel, And the one, Orpah, goes back. I always think of Orpah, and I think of Oprah Winfrey. Oprah was named after Orpah. They're spelled wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the story behind Oprah. That's a true story. And so Oprah stays in Moab, and Ruth, the Rose of Moab, comes with Naomi. And that beautiful story of how God takes someone who has lost everything and backfills and fills those hands. So it's a story of emptiness to fullness theme. It's a really rich theme where God can take those empty hands where you lose a husband, lose your kids, you lose hope, and yet God is able to put hope and life back in your hands and life. And God's just so good. So I'm just a rich blessing just every day. Today was really special. So someone today's reading, what did you read that sticks with you? Good, Ryan.
2 Peter. We've been studying that in our Sunday school class, and it's difficult. So all week it's just been chewing through it and cross-referencing and zigzagging everywhere else.
Amen.
It's good though.
Amen. You're just in chapter 1, right? You're doing
Chapter 2.
Are you in chapter 2 now?
Yep. Okay. Trying to go through verses 18 through 22.
Okay. Well, the liberals, the wolves hate that book for 3 reasons. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Yeah, that's great. Amen. It's a great book. It is choppy. It's one of the choppiest books to read. Peter's a fisherman. His Greek isn't real good. He's not highly educated, but he's known for something. He was known that he was with Jesus, and that's all that matters. So that fisherman left those books. It left 3 books for us. First Peter, 2 Peter, and the Gospel of Mark is often called the Gospel of Peter. Peter's influencing Mark. Mark's writing, but Peter's giving him a lot to chew on. All under the process of inspiration. So excellent. Someone else, today's reading. Not yesterday's, not last month's manna. Today's manna.
Yeah. Well, I read through the Bible every year and read a chapter in the New Testament and a chapter in the Old. And today I was in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 on the principles of marriage, and that was very convicting. In the Old Testament, just chapter 29 of 1 Samuel, where Samuel has just passed and Saul consults a medium to try and figure out how to attack the Philistines and so forth. And so it just
How'd that turn out for him?
not very well. Cost him his life. But you know, I it's just convicting in my life of how many times have I short-circuited the Lord and said, Lord, you know, you're not answering me. I can't hear you, so I'm going to do this on my own. And yeah, I've been there, done that one.
Yeah, here's Samuel. If you want to study the epitome of a weak and horrible leader, he's as good as you can find, or as bad as you can find. As an example, terrible leader. Here's a leader that should be seeking God, and he's seeking really the devil through these mediums. You know, sometimes it's good to hit a happy medium, but not that one. That's really bad. But I think of Reagan, likely born again. His pilot was a Christian on Air Force One, and he said it was not uncommon for Reagan to get on the plane holding a Schofield Bible. He would read it, fall asleep. But his wife, she would go to mediums. He said, what in the world? You know?
Wow.
So one's trusting God to a degree, and the other's trusting, 1 Samuel 29 practices. Thanks, Sam. So if you want to read through the Bible, about 3.2 chapters a day is what you need.
Real quick, do you believe that the Witch of Endor brought forth, well, not her, but I mean, you think, during her kind of contention that God allowed Samuel's spirit to...
So when the Witch of Endor was doing her hocus pocus, trying to get in touch with her familiar spirits that she did business with regularly, her reaction tells you she made another connection that she wasn't quite used to.
Yes.
So her response gives you the answer. Her response when she was doing her seance thing, touching the spirits of the other side to get information, and demons have a lot of information. They've been around for thousands of years, so they have a lot of information. And projections are very good at analysis and what might happen. Nostradamus type stuff. But I think she got more than she ever expected or realized. So I think that was the real deal. Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
Because they can't know the future. That's a unique thing of God. They can
is.
make educated guesses, but they can't. And that's, to me, the dead giveaway.
It is. Demons are intelligent creatures. They're called familiar spirits because they know us, they study us. They've been doing this for a long time. C.S. Lewis's books, The Screw Tape Letters, is a pretty insightful way the strategy might look. But they can't predict the future. But what you just said, Bob, is just so important to understand. They have watched patterns in people, and they can make very calculated projections. And so you got these people giving these predictions and prophecies, and sometimes they hit it, sometimes they don't. But
they're also behind the scenes propping things up.
Oh, they are.
We see this in Daniel's interrupted prayer, right? How during his fasting, that fight all the way to him and then all the way back. Well, that was foreshadowing of great empires that had yet to peak.
Yeah, they can prop things up.
And people.
Because they can make some of their predictions self-fulfilling, or at least give the impression, and so to wow you and to get a following. And you don't play with it. You don't play with that stuff. I'll tell you that. You get some idiots who do. And I love my mother-in-law, but she was not wise. Her sister was a witch, and they'd have seances and all kinds of stuff, and it was not good. Believe me, it was not good. So stay away from it. Yeah. Anyone else? Just your reading here. Yeah.
I'm on Deuteronomy. I read all the way through the Bible. Okay. I mean, don't be too impressed. I started in the year 2000, and I started in Matthew, read all the way through, and then went back to the beginning again. Now I'm on Deuteronomy. So that's, I think in 20 years, that's not too. But anyway, it's remarkable when you think about Western civilization and the United States and England, going back, you'd read you think, oh, thou shalt eat this, thou shalt not eat that. No. There is so much in here that we've gotten from. This is why we call it Judeo-Christian, tradition of, law, government, societal standards, so much in here. And if you look, all right, here's the beginning of the Exodus. Here's the end of Deuteronomy. Okay, this is the law and governing standards of a pretty significant sovereign nation. Okay, this right here, and it repeats itself. This. I dare you to go to Washington, D.C. to the Federal Register and see if it's this big. I guarantee you there's going to be rows. So this is God's standard. There's another thing in here in chapter 8 of Deuteronomy. It says, if you will, when you get big, and I'm not saying the United States is Israel, but like you just said, there's strong historical patterns here. When you have houses and when you have abundance and when you have, this and that, and sorry about that, lost my place. When you have abundance, it says, and thou shalt say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand hath gotten me this wealth. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that gives thee power that he may establish his covenant that he sware unto the father. And that shall be if thou do it all, forget the Lord thy God and walk after other gods and serve them and worship them. I will testify ye this day that ye shall surely perish. We didn't begin by kicking the God out of public schools, which never mind about public schools were never intended to be about education or all about social glory, but I won't get into that. We didn't start by doing that. We started with arrogance. We started out with our hand did this. We are mighty because we are so smart and great. We forgot God. Everything else followed along with us. Everything you see around you today, the leftism, the immorality, right here in Deuteronomy chapter 8, because we forgot God. We did it with our mighty hand.
Good message, Mark. Thank you for sharing. Well, we'll pick it up here in Romans 6. I'm going to read the passage to you, and I'll walk through my worksheet here with you a little bit, just some finer points. But we're talking about dynamic change from men and going to passages that really deal with sanctification issues, addresses it, in this case, quite directly. But Romans 6, I'll just begin reading verse 1, and I'll read up here verse 8. So what shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know ye not that so many of us, as were baptized into Jesus Christ, were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. Knowing this is a new passage for tonight, verse 6. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is freed from sin. Now, if we be dead with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him. And I know as I read through that, it's just so many ideas floating around. It's just hard to grasp, quite frankly, at least for me. So we got to work at it very, incrementally and sequentially, and try to figure out what's Paul saying here about sin and how to live the Christian life. And so I'm going to pick things up in verse 6. And you don't have to be a Greek scholar to do what I'm trying to do here. I'm just, number one, I'm outlining, diagramming is what you would call it in school, diagramming the verse, or verses that I would like us to look at. And when I'm diagramming, I like to put a line under the subject, a singular line. So you'll see 6:6, there's a word there that starts off with the Greek letter A or alpha, and that's the word anthropos, anthropology, study of man. So what's neat about the Greek language is the nouns have certain endings or declensions that tell you if it's subject or object or something else. So if you have that OS ending on a noun, that's the form for the subject. So it's no guessing for me. Now, in your English, you can get to the same conclusion. So it's not, this isn't beyond any of us. So we're talking about this man. And what man? The old man. My kids call me old man. Hey, old man. I call Larry the old man of the mountain. Well, my kids call me, hey, old man. How many of you get that now? The old man. Oh, really, kids? Am I really that old? All right, so the old man, old then would be an adjective describing the man. So we have a subject there, the man, the old man. And then I like to find the main verbs, and I put 2 lines, very standard diagramming guidelines, 2 lines under the main verb. The challenge when you go into, especially this King James and the complexity of Paul's very articulate approach to arguing a point, it's hard to know what the main verbs are unless you have a little bit more knowledge of the language. And so as you walk through this page, if a word is circled, that means it's either a participle or an infinitive. I made a mistake there with the one I circled it, but it really wasn't either of those. So line 1, 2, 3, the second word, that is a main verb and not a participle or infinitive. So you'll see all the circles in blue. Those are not main verbs. They're participles or infinitives. And the way participles work and infinitives work, they are designed to give further definition or explanation regarding the main verb. And there's a relationship between that participle or infinitive. In this language that the Holy Spirit so chose, there's so many ways that participles and infinitives give very precise definition. You can have a causal relationship, main verb because of this, whatever being described. You can have a conditional way it can be. There's just so many very, very, very specific ways the language works. So all those circles, they're not the main verbs, but all the verbs that have 2 lines under it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 verbs on this one page that you're going to see. So subject and then the verb. And subjects and verbs demand an object. Sometimes you can stick an indirect object between the verb and the object. So I'm trying to just get the basic flow of each verse. And then I often, if I have a tricky passage, I will sometimes doodle. So I gave you on the back here, just I'm looking at these verses, I'm saying who's what and where. And so verse 6, I've got this guy with the Trump haircut, knowing this. Okay, this guy knows something. He's got good noodle. He knows something. And what does he know? He knows that the old man has been crucified with Christ. So I'm just drawing the pictures, just in my mind. If I can get the word pictures, maybe that'll help me understand the flow of the passage. So there's many times I'm just going to diagram on the one side, and the other side just kind of, I'm not a good artist, so I'm just kind of stick picture and stuff together, and that helps me sometimes understand what's in view. So I'm just giving you a couple examples of some initial groundwork. So I'm going to just walk real quickly through the first page and point out some features that's going to make our study a little tighter, a little more precise in our understanding. So let's just start in 6:6. And you have knowingness in your English. This knowing is the word order in Greek, with this knowing. And you're going to see in the Greek language, there are 2 verbs for to know. So whenever I see that word know, I want to know, is it gnosko or is it oida? The 2 verbs. Gnosko, the one that's in view here, is to experientially know something. Okay? I was going over some old notes today from a prayer meeting. I don't know why. I was with Keith Huda, and it was about this guy who was trying to deal with a concrete problem and was pumping concrete into the ground like mad, and it wasn't resolving the problem. I mean, it just kept taking more and more concrete until he realized that 2 blocks down the road, the concrete was coming out.
Been there, done that.
Well, it was your story. It was your story. I wrote your story down. It's so amusing. So Sam has experience, as he works with, leveling buildings and floors and difficult projects, that when you're pumping concrete in and you're pumping concrete truck after concrete truck, you might have a problem. So Sam, you experienced that. What happened on that project?
Well, what it taught me was you've got to learn how to control your grout when it's going in the ground. And the way you do that is with different consistencies, different mix designs and so forth. But if it's a grout that'll travel, it'll, Lord knows where it goes. So, yeah, you got to learn how to control things.
All right, so here's Sam. He learned through experience, the best teacher, experience, how to do that and how not to do that. That's the verb. The other verb is oida. It's just facts. It's just knowledge. Okay. So Samuel he's a techie guy. Tell us a fact about your job that we probably don't know. Just tell us a fact about your work.
A fact about my job?
Yeah.
My company probably processes like $300 million of like money through it a year.
So it's productive. They're making $300 million. What do you do?
What do I do? I'm an electrical technician. I assemble automatic controls for heating, cooling, battery backup, data prevention, like a bunch of stuff.
Tell us some components.
We work with power supply units, terminal blocks to transfer electricity at breakpoints, motors, variable frequency drives. We do solar.
What are some of the frequencies you work with?
Well, most AC power is transferred at 60 hertz here. We also could do 120.
Of course.
And you can do three-phase too.
Do you understand a word the man's saying? I don't.
I don't either.
Okay, you do. You're with him. Okay. But he's giving you facts. Okay, he has experience, but he's giving you facts. Okay, I could write the facts down. I don't have any experience in that. Okay, that's the oida. I know the facts. Okay, I read it from the book. You have guys out there, they come out of college and they manage guys who are twice their age, have all this experience, but they have a degree. Okay, they have knowledge.
I don't know how to do your job, but my book tells me you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. You say, what? Yeah, so that guy needs to get the experience. All right. So the two words. So this is knowingness. He's saying you've experienced this. This is something you really have a grip on. This isn't foreign to your life. So knowingness. And then he says, this is what you know. You better know this. You should know this, that our old man has been crucified with. So that next phrase. So that the old man, our old man, so it's possessive. It's part of me. It is us. Our old man has been crucified. Look at that fancy word there where it says has been crucified. You have the word stavros, which is your noun for cross, and you have starao, the verb, but you have a word in front of it, SUV, okay, SUV, the soon, which means with. So you have a complex verb here with this prefix. So you have been crucified with. Notice it doesn't say Christos or him after the verb. You have to add that to make sense of what he's saying here. And the context determines that the old man, he's been crucified with someone. Who's it been? You've been crucified with Christ. Right? You know this. Now, we start to ask questions. Do I really know this? I'm confused already. Who's the old man other than the pastor who's called that by his kids? So who is the old man?
I don't say former man.
Okay, so he could be another adjective, a former man.
Our old self.
Okay, our old self.
Our old self.
Our old self, the former old man.
The reason I say that is we get hung up on the word old. This could be, a lot of us are saying we were teenagers. It's far from an old man. So, but even at that point, that was the former kind of incarnation of who we are, new creation in Christ.
Okay.
That other person is, was crucified.
So if I had a whiteboard behind me, I could say the old man is the former self, the previous person. What else? How would you describe that old man?
Well, old isn't necessarily an indicator of age. Old is the opposite of new, which is what we become in Christ.
Okay.
So the old man is what we were before Christ.
All right. So the old man, the former life, the former person before Christ, contrasts with the new man. That's so huge contrast. Old, new doesn't mean you're 20 and you're 40 or 40 and 15. No. Former, current, new. Okay.
You're born again. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's two different.
Yeah. There's a past and a point, at least the present, future. Okay, good.
All that a person is before salvation.
That's a great way to say it. Everything that you were formerly before salvation. Okay, is that a good definition? That's a good definition.
Look at it in a broader sense.
Yep, go ahead.
Where Adam, as the first man, when he fell into sin, every man is kind of like a duplicate of him, where Christ is unique when he was the first man without sin. And so when we are saved, God views us through Christ as salvation. And so we move from that position of being a copy of Adam to becoming a copy of Jesus. It's a little bit of a stretch there, but
No, not at all.
That's quite good.
No, it's dynamite. Did Joe catch what he's saying? That's because that old man relates to Adam, fallen Adam. All that we are in the old man Adam. He's a representative head. We're clones. We may have our little different nuances how we do it, but we're fallen creatures. And it's. I remember my roommate, and I really damaged him on several levels. But I get saved, and I'm no longer doing the old man stuff, or not all of it. And I can still remember Rick sat down with me and said, "Will, look, whatever, there's a place for religion. I'm happy for you to get some of it. It's good, but you're really overdoing it." And I really like the old Will better than whatever this new thing is. And you use that word, the old Will. I want the old Will back. Okay, I want the old Will back. That old life that is a clone or a replica or a template that follows the old fallen Adam. All right, so that old man. Now, what's the new man? Who's he? Because that is the contrasting, the imagery is old and new man. Old man, new man. Who's that new man? After whose image are we bearing now? Jesus. Yeah, Jesus, the second Adam. Paul calls him the second Adam. It's really neat. The first Adam is fallen. And that's who we were before we were converted. We're like him. We're like the old man. That is the old man, that life and nature and all that. But now we're saved and we're a new person. We're a new creation. And we are being restored. There is a sanctification point where we're becoming renewed, becoming more like the image of Christ, being more like him. So very, very powerful. So this old man here is being described, and we've been crucified with someone. Now, I've never been crucified. Sometimes we feel like we've been persecuted and people harmed us, but I don't think anyone in the room here has been crucified. Let me see. Any of you have any scars? I'm just curious. I got stitches everywhere. So who's got the most stitches? Well, let's start with the head. How many have over 50 stitches in the head? Anyone? Oh, you're kidding. Okay, I got that category. How many have over 50 stitches in their wrists or hands?
You get that one?
I got that one. You're kidding. How about over 50 stitches in your legs? So Ryan and I.
150 stitches, fastest.
I got stitches there. I don't think I have over 50 in my leg, but I have a lot of stitches. Okay. How many in your leg?
Stitches get stitches.
There you go. I think I've only got 5.
So how many, Ryan?
64 stitches and then 32 staples.
Yeah, it's a lot. Okay.
Sweet looking scar though.
Yeah, so it's nasty. So, none of us are physically, the point is, none of us have been crucified. So we know that what's in view here must be another view of crucifixion for us, and it must be some other association. So has been crucified, in the verb here adds, like I said, that prefix with, and it suggests you have to complete it. The translators do a great job, and they do it. They tell us we've been crucified with what? It says with him. Notice in the King James, him is in what?
Italics.
And they're telling you we needed to add that word to make sense of it. They're being honest, but you have to do that. So when you go from one language to another, sometimes you've got to do that, and they did a beautiful job. Okay, so what we have here is we've been crucified. And notice above that verb, I have that little dot. If you remember from last week, I said I'm marking the verbs with a very simple system. If it has a little period or a dot, that's past tense. So we've been crucified sometime in the past.
They call that punctiliar.
Yeah, you could use punctiliar rather than linear. Yeah, you could use punctiliar. Yeah, but I would say just past tense, keep it real simple. There's past tense, it happened in the past. So who was crucified in the past? I mean, who do we know? Obviously, it's, rhetorical question. It's Christ. So Christ was crucified. So on my other side of the page here, okay, I know this. And here's my old man. And whatever that old man was crucified with Jesus. So when I go to the cross, who was crucified with Jesus that day? We have two thieves, but on that cross, what all was nailed to that cross? Let's talk about it. It's critical for our growth. So what was nailed to Christ in the tree? Several things.
Our old man.
Our old man.
Sins of mankind.
Yeah.
He carried them.
He bore all of our sins.
Yes.
Okay. But part of this picture is all the sins are heaped on him. And in conjunction, how do you separate it? But in the old man, all that we were in Adam and his fallen state, all of that, whatever that is, that old man was also with those nails nailed to that person on that tree. So and back then, the really from the wrist up was considered the hand. So some people say, well, that we know that they put nails right there. That's not the hand. No, in the ancient world, that's still the hand. So nail in the hands and a large nail for both legs as they crossed, and they just hammered it through into that part of the cross. So nailed to Jesus was our sins, and the old man was there. The old man was there. And so at the cross, the old man died. And the Lord anticipated that we would be saved. We would call upon him in salvation. So with that in mind, your old man is on that cross. So when you look at the cross, you see Jesus, but look, that's our sin on him. He suffered hell on the cross. I mean, this is a horrific death. He is separated from God. My God, Eli, sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why is Jesus saying that? Because he was. He was. He was forsaken by the Father as he took on our sin. And so you have to look at the cross with this sense. It was my sins that killed him. It was my sins that are nailed to him. And we may get to that understanding, but if we can group in with this concept, the old man, the old Will was there too. So how many people in this room was your old man there? I mean, we're talking about a massive crucifixion. The amount of sin and this, what all we were before conversion, all was there. So what happens when someone dies? With Jim Steele, classic example, Jim will not be teaching this Sunday.
Separation.
Separation. Jim's not teaching. Okay, and then he may teach, but he may be dead yet speaketh to us when we get that. But when someone dies, there's separation. It's very real. They don't connect anymore. Life and death. So it's an amazing picture here that he's giving here. And I'm thinking, so me as a saved person, a new creature in Christ, a new man, I don't have to choose to sin anymore. Why would I? Why should I? Because my old man, which includes all that I was before I was saved, was on the cross, and it's very dead. And my problem is what? What's my problem? First, I got to know this, right? I got to know this. I better know this, that the old man was crucified with Jesus. I better know this. And then what's the next verb we're going to look at that's so important to grasp so we can break from, we've been forgiven for the penalty of sin, but what about the power of sin in our life? How do we get victory, sanctification? So in this passage, we're going to walk through it, and there's a point that if we don't grasp next, we're not going to have the victory that really is being provided for us. So let's keep walking through the passage and try to find that next verb. So that old man has been crucified with him. And then you have that next, that 1-2 be the third line, has a little iota nu alpha in hina. And that's a always critical word. Hina means purpose or result. It's translated usually in order that or that. In order that, and then you have, I kind of was distracted. You have a verb next, and then you have the body. So in order that the body of something, and notice the body is of sin, or the sin. The definite sin is my sin. So something, there's a purpose statement being made here in order that the body of sin might be set aside, or might be abolished, or might be deactivated. And then the King James, another way to translate is very good, obviously, be destroyed. So all of a sudden, I'm saying this body of sin, this a union with Christ, this identification with his cross, this understanding of the old man being crucified with him, this has all happened. God did this for me with a purpose that the body of sin might be set aside. That is a great diet plan, okay? To get rid of all the weight of sin, I mean, the whole body of it, the whole bunch of it, the whole junk. That the body of sin might be abolished, set aside, destroyed, deactivated. Wow, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that? I don't have to have a body of sin in it. I can have victory over that. So low there. So really powerful. So when you think the body of sin, how would you describe the body of sin? Bodies have many pieces, many parts, many components. And so did the old man. We had a lot of different sin issues. The whole body of sin. We talk about the body of divinity, or the body of whatever. The body of sin.
Let's say the body of sin, our physical body is in itself sinful.
It's the tool that our flesh works through. Doesn't mean the body always is sinning, but our flesh, our fallen nature, is going to work for the body. So body, you can think of something, a lump sum of something, a totality, or you can think of the body itself. And probably both, there's some aspects of both that are in view here. So you think about your sin, it's usually manifested through the body, right? Sure. Okay. So we have here the body of sin, that it might be abolished. So boy, here's the purpose of this crucifixion and our identification with it, that the old man was crucified. And then it goes on in verse 6 that no longer we should serve the sin. So that body of the sin, that definite sin that pertains to our life, we don't have to serve that anymore. That sin doesn't have to be our master anymore. And he uses an infinitive here. I'm sorry, present. Yeah, present. You don't have to continually serve the sin.
Is that henceforth?
Yeah, it means currently in future.
See, they don't have a cool word like henceforth in the Greek. Henceforth. We shall not.
We might have a henceforth coming up here.
We might?
Yeah,
oh,
why
boy.
Not? We might have a hence here and there thrown in, but notice the tense is continual serving. And the word doulos means what?
Servant.
Slave or servant. So you don't be a slave to sin anymore. Sin does not be your master. You have a new master is the idea. You have Christ that you're going to serve. There's a change in ownership here. And so you don't have to do this anymore. Because of what Christ has done in the old man being crucified with him, this body of sin can be set aside, deactivated, set aside, abolished, destroyed. That we know, so that we no longer continue to serve sin, the sin. Verse 7, for or because the one is dead and has been freed or has been justified from the sin. Notice in verse 7, you have a verb there that has a red line under it. Notice above it, we have a fancy little thing here, a dot and an arrow. And that's describing something that God did in the past an event that has ongoing benefits. Beautiful, beautiful verb here. So the one who's dead, because the one who's dead has been freed, passive voice, someone's doing this for us, someone's working through us so that we're freed from the sin. So we are no longer slaves of sin. We've been set free. We've been set free. I've been listening to a song by Ben Everson. It's I Am Free. Ben's a friend of mine. I don't know if you've heard Ben Everson. Nice young guy. He was here once. Had all the technology, went all sideways, poor guy. But anyway, so I've been set free from the sin.
Yeah.
And then verse 8 is the word I've been trying to get to. And now, we died the past, that little dot, past tense, but we died with Christ. Now this time we don't have to add the Christos, it's there, with Christ, so we know that up above we interpret it properly, where that verb has been crucified with, fill in blank, him, because the context tells us here that we've been crucified or we died with him, we died with Christ. So we got to tell our old man, you're not alive, dude, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead. And this is where the next verb is so critical. It says, we are believing that we also shall live with him. We are believing. Present tense, main verb. We are believing. So when we struggle with sin, what are some of our problems? What are some of the things from our passage that we're not getting? So knowing this, so it might be ignorance. One of our problems is just ignorance.
Not wanting to let go.
Not wanting to let go. We might love our sin and the old man who's dead. Why would you want to walk around with a dead man? Okay, I know Netherlands has their dead man days. I think it's pretty appalling. I find no joy in the thought of going up there watching people push caskets around. Okay. And I made a casket my senior year in wood class. So yeah.
Well, why'd you do that? Just curious.
The old man.
Oh, okay.
Just stupid. The old man. I built a casket. My parents were furious when graduation day week came. I didn't realize I had to pay for all that wood. And for me to graduate, I didn't have money. I was a senior in high school. My poor stepdad. How much money do we owe? What did he do? He built a coffin. My parents kept it. It's in the basement. They still use it. They use it for storage. Pretty.
Was it walnut?
It wasn't walnut. It was very expensive wood. Plywood. But I thought it was pretty neat. And but I drove hearses back then. Okay. So I worked for a company where we sold ambulances, hearses, and school buses. And can you imagine the old Will with an ambulance, with a PA system and all the lights going on when probably you shouldn't have them on? Or how about a hearse with a casket in the back, and you come to a stoplight and the casket falls out, or someone gets run over and you pick them up and put them in the coffin and put it in the hearse and drive off. So things that our family like to do.
Have a little feet hanging out.
Yeah. So this is old man talk. This is the old man. He died though. The old Will's gone. He's dead.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
So we don't know that we were crucified. The old man was crucified. We actually died with him. Right. So there's a death to the old man. Okay, we don't know that. What's the next point here we don't get? When sin is having its way in our life and we're getting dominated by sin, what else is a problem? What else is a problem? From our passage, verses 6, 7, 8.
If you would say that you don't know that your old master is dead, then you could conversely say that you don't know that you're living with the new master, and how that grieves him, that it says the Holy Spirit's grieved every time.
So say both points of that again. Because what he's saying here, Paul's emphasizing the one point right now. The other point he's going to come to and build on in just a moment. We won't get to it tonight, but say it again, Simon.
Oh, so Pastor Sen brought up the point that we don't know that the old man is dead when we're giving in to him.
Yep.
That we're acknowledging his previous existence. So conversely, that would mean that we're denying that we're currently alive in Christ.
Yeah. Do you hear what he's saying? That's beautiful. That, I mean, it's really, really good. You know, can you have any examples of someone serving someone under servitude, but that leader dies and the person who's the slave didn't know it? Give an example of that in history. I'm just curious.
There were some Nazis who were like that when they didn't know that Hitler was dead, and they tried to continue the war.
I thought Hitler was in South America.
Serious, Festerson?
Okay. So there was Nazis that kept serving when Hitler's out of the picture. Okay.
Oh, in Okinawa, there was
Japanese people.
Yeah, a lot of Japanese
Yeah.
caves and stuff.
Yeah, hiding in the cave.
Yeah.
They had no idea until after like 20 years
after the war was over. He didn't realize the war.
Actually, there was one that was like 30 or 40 years. It was on islands because they had an island hopping campaign that Arthur did. And they skipped them. They skipped a bunch of them. And so the guys, they're completely self-sufficient for decades. Had absolutely no idea. And they couldn't believe it that Japan had lost.
So they're serving a dead master.
Yeah.
What futility. And we can go throughout more history and you can get these examples like, are you kidding? He's dead? I didn't even know it.
I got a weird one. And you know, we had a beehive at a previous house. And the bees had no idea that was there until one day, somehow they bored through. And within an afternoon, there were 200 bees in the house. So we had to have a professional to come and deal with that situation. And what was so interesting is even though the hive was huge, I mean, it was completely, you know, it was a total disaster. And they sealed it up and everything else. But for several days after the hive was gone, there were quite a number of bees that were trying to return to their home that didn't exist anymore.
That's good.
And so I think of sin in that context as trying to, you know, is trying to return, is trying to, but it doesn't have a
Its
home.
ugly head, yeah.
It doesn't have a home.
Doesn't have a home. Home's gone.
Yeah.
That's an interesting analogy. And we've got to grasp this analogy and we've got to believe it. Paul's going to use the word reckon it. We got to count this as true. We got to believe this is true. That we've been buried with Christ. We have died with Christ. We've been crucified with Christ. The old man, we got to know this and we got to believe this. Is it true? Do we really believe it? So that's where the breakdown comes down. We don't really reckon it. We don't really count it. We don't really trust what God has said for the pathway he wants us to live for victory. But we'll come back more because we're just piecing this again. We're trying to get wrap our arms around all the whole context when we work with some of the smaller details. Okay, any comments, questions, and then we'll pray here as a group.
How does our old nature fit in this? Our old man has been crucified, but we still have our old nature.
So we're going to get to the nature. So what would be the answer just in this short statement regarding that? So the old man, typically the theologians will say, is describing all we are in our former life that replicates Adam. And with that matchup, old man matching up with fallen Adam, one part or component of the old man is our sin nature. So one part of it. And Paul's going to talk about that old nature as well.
Because if you carry that to a logical sense, if you sin, you're not saved. And that's where
you're denying.
Yeah.
Or you're denying.
So now you got to go get saved again, you know, and so it'll be interesting to see how you.
Let's walk through that because that's good. These are type of questions Paul actually does address. That'd be good.
Yeah, he does.
Really
but it also comes down to our faith. We may know that our old man is dead, but we choose to sin, and
we choose to be enslaved to sin.
Apostle Paul said the things I don't want to, I shouldn't do. Those are the things I do, and the things I should do. Those are the ones I don't do.
So those are what Sam's referencing here is exactly where we're going in chapter 7, verse 24. Oh, wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this? How do I get out of this? We're going to see in chapter 7, the one word that's repeated is the word I. You know, I. That's our problem. It's me. I. And then chapter 8, the key noun is Holy Spirit. The difference is to walk by the power of the Spirit of God. So we're going to put it. This is very rich ore. You know, up in the mountains when they're looking for gold, there's a certain colors and combinations and whatever that aqua color when you see this, our guide, you see this, you're not near rich ore, you're in it. You're in it. We're in it. We're in some rich ore. And I want us to walk through this thing, and it's very challenging. And hopefully we can advance our knowledge and experience and more victory in our lives. Okay, Rich, how about you close us in prayer, sir? And then let's get into smaller groups. Just close this and then let's get into small groups.